Wait a minute. Anyone can pull it once it's been pulled. You must put your hand into it.
It's a miracle.
Question number one, Mr. Malcolm Bruce.
Go on, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this morning I presided at a meeting of the Cabinet and had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall be having further meetings later today, including one with the German Defence Minister and one with the National Pensioners' Convention.
Mr. Malcolm Bruce.
Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister accept that there is growing anger and dismay in Scotland at the way the Scottish steel industry is being run down by the British Steel Corporation? Does she not accept that the time is right on competition grounds alone for British Steel's monopoly to be ended and for an independent steel industry to be established based in Scotland? Would this not serve best the interests of competition and the interests of the Scottish steel industry? Does she not accept that the Secretary of State for Scotland has indicated that this may be a course that should be considered, and my party have been advocating it for the last 2 or 3 years, and it has growing support within Scotland?
Mr. Speaker, the best guarantee of a successful steel industry has been privatisation. Before it was privatised, it was losing about £3 million a day. Now it is making over £500 million profit a year. With regard to Ravenscraig, the honourable gentleman knows that the British Steel Prospectus stated that subject to market conditions, there would continue to be a need for production at Ravenscraig until 1994. The chairman of British Steel has recently reaffirmed that statement. They also gave the assurance that if they were not to need Ravenscraig at some future date, they would be prepared to sell it to another buyer. That assurance stands, and I wish Ravenscraig well.
Mr. Tim Smith.
Number 2, sir.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
Mr. Tim Smith.
Mr. Speaker, is my right honourable friend aware that in the fourth quarter of last year, exports rose by no less than 23% compared with the same period in 1988? Given the additional good news that Japanese investors are to create 400 new jobs at Barnsley and German investors 300 new jobs in Birmingham, isn't there every reason to be optimistic about the prospects for British manufacturing?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend that British manufacturing industry can take justifiable pride in their success. Their production is an all-time record. This year, their investment was an all-time record of over and above the previous record set in the year before. Growth has been good, and the growth has been strongest in the highest technology industries. Production of electronic goods has increased by 50%. Aerospace production has doubled, and the computer industry has grown faster than any other country except Japan. That success has come about under conservative economic policies. Japan and Germany know this and are anxious to put more investment here.
Mr. Neil Kinnock.
Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister ready to recognise that her high mortgage rate policies and her poll tax are bound to push up the rate of inflation?
Mr. Speaker, as the right honourable gentleman is aware, our top priority is to get inflation down. And I would also hope that he would be aware that the way of doing that in the longer term has to be by making the price of money more expensive. If he doesn't know that, I'm very surprised.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister talks about combating inflation. She's actually causing inflation. Isn't it absolutely clear that because of the high interest rates, the high mortgage rates, and the high poll tax, that the level of inflation now faced by the British people is mainly made in Downing Street?
No, Mr. Speaker, the right honourable gentleman is grumbling, quite rightly, about an inflation level of 7.7%. Under the Labour government, it reached...
Order. The Prime Minister.
Under the Labour government, it reached 26.7%, an all-time high in this century. Our record is far, far better than any that the party opposite would ever produce.
Mr. Speaker, this time last year, the Prime Minister said to me, when inflation was at 7.8%, that it was proceeding towards zero. Now it's 7.7%. Is that what she calls proceeding?
Mr. Speaker, it is because we have growth faster than we thought we had it, that in fact it is taking longer to turn round, but nevertheless we have a record number of home owners and a very high level of mortgage payers, 99% of whom are managing to pay their mortgage and know the fundamental truth that those who put their money in bricks and mortar have in the longer run done better than those who put their savings in building society.
Mr. Neil Hamilton.
Reason.
I defer my honourable friend to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Hamilton.
Has my right honourable friend seen the new policy platform adopted by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, which extols the virtues of markets, stresses the importance of competition, calls for the scrapping of indiscriminate subsidies, and for the selling of shares in state enterprises, all of which are opposed by the party opposite?
Order! Order! I'm not certain that what goes on in the Soviet Union is the responsibility of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm coming to the point of my question. Is it not ironical that the government of the Soviet Union, which is adopting the policies of Her Majesty's government and edging that country towards a free enterprise future, is opposed by honourable gentlemen opposite whose minds are still sunk in the socialist attitudes of the 60s and 70s?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend makes his point very effectively as usual. Those who have lived under socialism know that it produces only poverty and oppression, and they turn away from that to conservative policies, as they are doing in Eastern Europe.
Mr. Turner!
Mr. Speaker, is the Prime Minister aware that in Wolverhampton, if they were to get down to the poll tax level projected by her government, they would need to take out 28 millions from their spending? That is equivalent to the whole of our social services and almost all of our leisure services. Would she also tell the people of Wolverhampton why they have to pay an additional surcharge of £47, which is nothing to do with their services and that has been imposed by her government? They want to know, and they want it taken away.
Mr. Speaker,
Order!
Authority are finding it difficult to get down 28 million. Do they not realise, which I doubt, do they not realise that they're doing the worst possible thing, which I doubt, do they not realise they're doing the worst possible thing by taking it out of the pockets of their residents? Because that's what they're doing if they're putting up the community charge higher than it need be.
Mr. Dudley Fishburne!
My honourable friend to reply which I gave some moments ago.
Honourable friend, will my right honourable friend confirm that it is the government's intention, once the community charge is in place, that private landlords who currently charge their tenants rent and rates combined will lower their charges by the amount of rate and not just pocket the difference?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right. I hope that private landlords will lower their charges when they no longer have to pay rates and therefore act in accordance with the terms of their tenancy agreements. There are various remedies available for tenants whose landlords do not agree to such a reduction, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for the Environment, is setting these out in a leaflet which will be widely available.
Mr. Winnick!
The Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, give any explanation why it is that despite all the money and propaganda spent on it, the poll tax is the most detested and hated tax brought into this country for centuries. And can I ask the Prime Minister, if she disputes what I'm saying in any way, Could we have a referendum on the poll tax?
Mr. Speaker, first, had we had a rating or revaluation of domestic properties, which some of us have been through before, that would have been infinitely more detested than the present community charge. The community charge will have more generous rebates than the rating rebate system ever had, and also a transitional relief scheme which does not, in fact, depend upon means testing. I can understand why honourable gentlemen opposite do not like a community charge, because, in fact, it will reveal the highest spending councils are Labour, but they have an even worse remedy in a roof tax by putting a local tax on capital values, regardless of whether the person who lives in the house owns it or not, and by adding to it a test of income tax.
Mr. Colin Shepherd.
My honourable friend to reply which I gave some minutes ago.
Colin Shepherd.
Speaker, is my right honourable friend aware that the United Kingdom agricultural industry grows some 75% of our indigenous foodstuffs, and at the same time contributes through exports some £1,600 million to the balance of payments and balance of trade? Will my right honourable friend recognise this and help sustain the confidence of this vibrant industry by maintaining pressure on the European community to dismantle the green pound?
Mr. Speaker, I gladly respond to my honourable friend and pay tribute to the farmers who put up production very highly and also put up productivity and saved us a great deal on balance of payments. We're also very much aware of the difficulties caused by the green pound, and we are really seeking a substantial devaluation of the green pound in the current price negotiations.
Dennis Skinner.
I wonder if the Prime Minister has ever considered the possibility that have been voiced by some of our backbenchers to reduce the poll tax by taking out education, maybe teachers' salaries, fire or police, or a combination of any three. Will she rule that out before the next election?
Mr. Speaker, the revenue support grant already pays a substantial part of education, of teachers' salaries, of polytechnics, and indeed every part of education. The business rate already pays a substantial other part of it. If therefore you were to take education out and run it centrally, which I think would be totally wrong, it is much better to do as we are by putting education away from the local authority out to the people to run themselves. That is a true devolution. But if it were a case of taking education out, a very substantial part of the revenue support grant would have to come out with it, and of course some of the business rate as well.
Mr. Den Dover.
Number 6, sir.
To number 6.
I refer my honourable friend to the reply which I gave some moments ago.
To Dover.
What encouragement can the Prime Minister give to the people of Chorley who quite sensibly voted in a Conservative-controlled Chorley Borough Council, who are spending exactly in line with government spending forecasts, and yet who are facing sky-high community charges because of the very high spending of Labour-controlled Lancashire County Council?
Yeah, what my honourable friend says about Lancashire, there's no justification for extravagance on the part of any authority whatsoever. And my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for the Environment, has made it perfectly clear that where there is excessive spending, he will not hesitate to charge cap the authority.
Mr. John Fraser.
The Prime Minister's right in suggesting that poll tax is another government success. Will she confirm that there won't therefore be any poll tax capping before now and the end of March?
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman is aware, we have not, all authorities have not yet set their budgets. My right honourable friend will then have to consider the criteria for charge capping, which will have to be considered very carefully, and then considered carefully in relation to each authority. That will, in fact, naturally take a time, and he'll do it as soon as he can.
Mr. John Burris.
Number 7, sir.
I refer my honourable friend's reply which I gave some moments ago.
Burris.
Is my right honourable friend aware that the last Stalinist regime in Europe has found a new role model and has found a new role model and renamed itself the Albanian Labour Party? Will my right honourable friend take time to send a message of support to the people of Albania and hope that one day they will be relieved from the burden of socialism in the same way as the people of this country?
my honourable friend makes his own point very well. I hope that the Albanian Labour Party will not be able to inflict upon the people of their country the sort of damage that socialist parties here inflicted upon ours.
Dr. Norman Godman.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the government believed that London is the natural choice for the home of the bank, and I have made this clear to all my community colleagues.
Dr. Norman Godman.
Despite the undoubted banking expertise and skills to be found in the United Kingdom, in London and Edinburgh, it is extremely unlikely that this bank will be sited in London. Should not the government show some magnanimity and argue the case for this bank to be sited in an Eastern European capital, for example, Prague?
No, Mr. Speaker. London is the largest centre for international banking in Europe. It houses the more international banks than any other major European nations. Foreign banks enjoy over 80% of the United Kingdom's international business, and 520 foreign banks are represented in London. We have the largest equity market in Europe. I can go on and give many qualifications and justifications why the bank should be sited in London. London would be quite the best position for that particular bank.
Private notice question.